There's something calming about tying off your boat after a long ride, hands busy with rope, breeze gently stirring the water, memories surfacing like driftwood. For those of us who've lived long enough, these quiet moments have a special meaning. They're the punctuation marks of a life well weathered. That's where I was, wrapped in one of those small, satisfying pauses, when flashing blue and red lights reflected off the water beside me. I finished the final cleat hitch and turned toward the steady sound of boots on the dock. 2 officers approached. The taller one, Officer Martinez, gave a polite nod and said, "Excuse me, sir. We received a call about trespassing and unauthorized docking at this marina." I didn't need to ask who called. Experience has a way of sharpening your instincts. From the corner of my eye, I saw her, bleached blonde hair, arms folded across a designer blouse, watching from the shoreline with a smug tilt of her chin. Patricia Hendris, known to everyone in our neighborhood as Karen, whether they said it aloud or not. And just like those quiet pauses on the water, this channel is my way of sharing the stories that surface when the world finally slows down. If it resonates with you, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe. I'm on the path to 1,000 subscribers, and everyone brings this journey to life. She stood there, convinced she had finally won the war she'd started, but the thing about living through enough chapters is you learn how to finish a story on your own terms. So let me rewind a bit to explain how this chapter began with police officers and a woman whose love for control finally ran out of rope. 3 months ago, I bought a piece of property overlooking the water in Sunset Shores. It wasn't just the crisp view or the sturdy craftsman-style house that caught my attention. No, it was something rarer, a deed that came with 51% ownership in the Sunset Marina next door. The previous owner, Frank Morrison, was a man whose reputation I respected long before I ever met him. A veteran of both the armed forces and real estate, Frank had built the marina nearly 40 years ago, back when this entire stretch was more swamp than suburb. He kept controlling interest in the marina even as the HOA wrapped its fingers around everything else. When Frank passed, his estate attorney offered me the chance to buy the house and his majority stake in the marina. I didn't hesitate. You don't say no to legacy. Patricia Hendris, on the other hand, had been HOA president for 7 years, though no one could recall voting for her. She ran things with a sort of enthusiasm usually reserved for tyrants and traffic cops. She decided who was allowed to enjoy the waterfront and who wasn't, often depending on whether or not you'd complimented her landscaping that week. The first week I moved in, she showed up on my porch with a fake smile and a 3-inch binder. "Welcome to Sunset Shores," she said sweetly. "I've taken the liberty of highlighting the most important HOA rules. Be sure to review sections 4 through 17. They concern watercraft regulations." I thanked her and set the binder aside. That was my mistake. People like Patricia expect deference. When I didn't attend the emergency HOA meeting she convened to welcome the new resident, she took it as an act of rebellion. But the real showdown began when I backed my boat, a 24-foot cabin cruiser I've cared for like a grandchild, down the marina ramp. She appeared out of nowhere, lips pursed and clipboard in hand. "You can't launch that here without HOA approval," she declared. I told her I lived at 47 Waterfront Drive and that the deed included marina rights. Her nostrils flared. "That doesn't matter. All watercraft must be approved by the HOA board before entering our marina." I smiled. "Actually, Patricia, I don't just have access. I own 51% of the marina. It came with the Morrison property." She turned the color of a bruised plum. That should have ended it, but people like Patricia don't accept defeat. They declare war. Over the next few weeks, she mounted a campaign worthy of a political machine: emails, flyers, whispers in cul-de-sacs. She warned the neighborhood that my unauthorized vessel would tank property values, that I was a reckless outsider who didn't understand community standards. She tried to weaponize public opinion. Neighbors would casually stroll by as I worked on my boat, pausing just long enough to sigh or shake their heads. Complaints flew from the HOA board to the City Marina Commission to even the Coast Guard Auxiliary. I answered every complaint with calm and documentation, but Patricia wasn't aiming for legal wins. She wanted fatigue. She wanted me to give up. Then came the photography, hundreds of pictures from every angle. She claimed my cruiser violated aesthetic guidelines, measured the distance from the dock, insisted I was 3 inches over some phantom line. She hired a so-called marine consultant who turned out to be her nephew, a college kid with a fishing license and a GoPro. Things boiled over at the next HOA meeting. Patricia took the podium like she was testifying before Congress. Her presentation, The Boat Problem, a clear and present danger to our community, featured slide after slide, arrows, red circles, grim statistics pulled from nowhere. When she finished, I calmly took the floor, connected my phone to the projector, and pulled up the original marina deed and incorporation paperwork. As you can see, I began, the marina is a private legal entity. The majority owner, me, holds full authority over slip assignments, boat approvals, and operations. The HOA has no jurisdiction beyond that of any individual homeowner. A hush fell over the room. HOA board members shifted uncomfortably. Patricia turned an astonishing shade of crimson. She screamed, "This is impossible. I've managed this marina for 7 years." I shrugged. "I didn't take anything, Patricia. I bought it. Want to see the tax records?" Her eyes practically sparked. 2 days later, she made her biggest mistake yet. I returned from a quiet morning cruise to find police waiting. She had actually dialed 911, accusing me of trespassing and illegal mooring. Officer Martinez heard my side, looked through my documents. His partner, Officer Chen, barely hid a grin as I scrolled through ownership records. Patricia watched, arms crossed, tapping one manicured nail against her elbow. Finally, Officer Martinez turned to her and said, "Ma'am, this gentleman owns the marina. He can't trespass on his own property." She barked back, "But the HOA has standards." Officer Chen stepped forward. "Ma'am, misuse of emergency services is a misdemeanor." That was the turning point. Word spread like wildfire. Neighbors came out of the woodwork with stories of her power trips. Tom in Unit 12 told me she tried to ban his kayak for being too yellow. Sarah in Unit 33 said she'd been asked to write an essay about why she deserved a slip. I called a marina-wide meeting. The community center was packed. I laid out plans, new cleats, better lighting, and fair slip policies. No more aesthetics panels, no more favor trading, just safety and respect. The applause was real. When I opened the floor, Patricia rose like a villain from a courtroom drama. "This is a coup," she hissed. "You're destroying everything that makes this community special." An older man named George stood slowly. "Patricia," he said, voice calm and tired, "the only thing being destroyed is your stranglehold." What followed was a chorus of support, people airing years of grievances. The garden gnome ban of 2019. The mailbox color debacle of 2020. The war on bird feeders. I closed the meeting with a simple statement: the marina will operate independently, and harassment will not be tolerated ever again. Patricia's lawyer tried to whisper her into silence. She refused. "You'll regret this," she spat. "But karma doesn't need a clock. It shows up right on time." The HOA board voted her out, 17 in favor, 2 against, and 1 abstention from her sister. They formally recognized my ownership and separated marina governance for good. She stormed out, seething. 2 weeks later, she submitted an application for a boat slip. I reviewed it with a steady hand. Her history of harassment, the 911 call, the misdemeanor, it was all there. I stamped it, denied. Final. She appeared in person to protest. "You can't do this to me. I am Sunset Shores." I didn't even flinch. There's a public marina 6 miles north. I hear they follow every HOA rule you could dream of. Eventually, legal fees from her failed attempts forced her to sell her house. Last I heard, she moved to Arizona, landlocked, far from marinas and boats. The board undid her rules one by one. And me? I installed a small sign at my private slip. It simply reads, owner operated. Now, families fish from the dock. Neighbors wave instead of whisper. No more tape measures, no more binders. Patricia's 911 call was the pebble that started a landslide. It ended her reign and gave this community its peace back. As for her final words, when the fines and charges came down, $3,000 for one phone call, her lawyer just shook his head. You're lucky it wasn't worse. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to stand your ground and reclaim a bit of peace, please consider giving it a like. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, I'd be truly grateful if you'd subscribe. I'm on the journey to 1,000 subscribers, and each one reminds me that these stories matter to all of us who've weathered a few storms and still believe in quiet victories.